Your ability to improve as a beginner saxophone player or lack thereof has little or nothing to do with a lack of resources, i.e. a saxophone teacher that is within your reach, tools such as a saxophone that costs $2K, $3K, $5K, a mouthpiece that costs $1,000, sheet music, training videos, etc. But it has everything to do with your resourcefulness. And in this video, I'm going to share with you two resources. One is by default, the second is by choice. When you combine these two resources together, you can 10x your growth as a beginner saxophone player. By the way, I am Kadrian, the Sax Habit Coach. I help beginner saxophone players and absolute beginner saxophone players learn faster and get better on their horns by the use of practice habits and routines. Now, James Clear puts it this way, that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So let me ask you a question. Do you have a practice habit for practicing your horn on a consistent basis? How often do you practice? Do you practice every day, once every week, or twice every week, once every month? How often do you practice? Leave a comment below. Now, I find it very interesting that there are people, oftentimes I've read comments online, who said that they haven't played their horn for like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They're coming back to it after 30 years. Now, one thing I find interesting about that is how can you have such a beautiful instrument, whether it's soprano, tenor, baritone, or alto, and not play it for so long? So in order to build a practice habit and a routine, you want to set up your environment for success. What do I mean by that? Instead of putting your horn in its case after each practice, what you do is put it on a stand. You put it out of harm's way, but at the same time in a place that you have to pass, where you have to see it, and it reminds you that, hey, pick me up. Because if you put your horn in its case and you shove it under a bed, in a corner, under a table somewhere, out of sight, out of mind. My saxophone doesn't go into its case unless I'm going outside of my shed, I'm going outside of my home, when I'm going to perform somewhere. That's the time it goes in the case. Otherwise, it's always on the stand in a place that I have to access on a daily basis, so it reminds me to practice. So that's one way to start developing the habit of practicing on a consistent basis. Without practicing consistently, you're not going to really reap any serious results. Now, the first resource that you have at your disposal, which everyone has, is that of TIME. Now, most saxophone players or beginners make the excuse about not having time to practice. The fact that you are watching this video right now, it means that you have time. Do you play video games? If you play video games, you have time. If you watch the news, you have time. If you go to take a stroll in the park, you have time, right? It amazes me that someone can watch a video for 20 minutes like this one right now, however long it's going to last, you can watch this video, but you won't take 5 minutes to play the horn. Are you struggling to get a warm, fat, silky sound from your horn? Your palm key notes, they sound thin. Your low notes sound like a cow that's in labor, and the rest of your horn like an empty drum rolling down a hill. Well, look no further. Use the link in the description below to join my free 5-minute tone builder course to transform your sound today. You can find the course at www.kadrianthomas.com. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and I'll see you on the inside. Time is a default. So whether you like it or not, time is going to move on. Whether you live to see age 25 or you live to see 105, time never stops. Okay? It keeps going. So let's take for an average of 30 days. Okay, we have 30 days. Then within those 30 days, each day is like 24 hours, right? 24 hours. And within each hour, we have 60 minutes. Okay, so if we multiply 24 hours by 30 days, we're going to come to 720 hours for a month. If we multiply 60 by 720 for a month, we are going to come at 43,200 minutes. Now think about it. 43,200 minutes over the span of 30 days is a lot of time. So can you find 5 minutes? Can you find 10 minutes? I'm sure you can. And what you want to do is that you take a timer. right? I have this nice little timer here. This is what I use when I am practicing or I am working on my business. I just set this timer and I sit down for whatever amount of time. In my practice session, 20 minutes. And when it goes off, I take a break, then I get back to it. You set yourself some time because the work that you are doing, whatever you are doing, the work is going to fill the amount of time that you have. So if you go into the practice room and you have no start time, you have no finish time, and you have no plan, and you just start to noodle, 3 hours later, you will be noodling and you realize that you haven't really accomplished anything. So whether you like it or not, 30 days is going to pass. 720 hours is going to pass. 43,200 minutes is going to pass. And if you multiply that by a year, all of that time will pass, whether you practice or not. So why wouldn't you give yourself that winning shot? Why wouldn't you give yourself that winning chance? Now, the problem is most people don't recognize how important it is to work in increments and work consistently, which is going to be my second point. You want to work consistently, okay? So you want to develop consistency as you work on your horn. So for example, you want to improve your tone. Think about it. Tone is the most difficult thing when it comes to learning the saxophone. It's not improvisation, it's not the licks or tricks. Tone is the most difficult to master, and therefore it's something that you need to work on consistently. Robin Sharma puts it this way: small, daily, seemingly insignificant improvements when done consistently over time will yield stunning results. So you may start and on day one, you practice the thing for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and you didn't see any result. You went for 5 days and nothing changed, you stopped. But if you continued 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, then you would recognize that's where the magic comes in. It's not about your talent, it's not about the tricks, but it's about being consistent. And I know what it is to be consistent, right? I've been in a relationship with one person for the last 16 years, my wife, and we've been married for 9. We were lovers from teenage years. You can't get full-time results from part-time commitment. So oftentimes I hear beginner saxophone players or some saxophone players say that they've been playing their horns for 4 years. Really? Have you been playing for 4 years? Have you been practicing every day for 4 years? Because if you've been practicing for 4 years and you still can't play your 12 major scales, then really it meant that you learned something in a week and you've been practicing the same thing over a time frame of 4 years, which may be once per week, once per month, okay? So you want to develop consistency, but how do you develop consistency? You develop consistency by putting a system in place. It means that you're going to show up at the same time, at the same place every day. So if it's 2 o'clock that you practice at 2 o'clock every day at the same time, and at the same place. That way your brain recognizes it as being important. Like every morning when I wake up, I go straight into the bathroom and I brush my teeth, I shave my face and then wash my face every morning. Your brain recognizes it as something that is important, and that's one of the ways how you develop consistency. The second way is that you need accountability, and that comes through finding an accountability partner or finding a teacher, a mentor. The mentor that you are going to get needs to be somebody who is also being mentored, okay? So if your mentor is mentoring you, he doesn't have a right to mentor you if he doesn't have mentors. When you talk about coach or mentor, you find somebody who knows something you don't know, who can already do something that you can't do, and you want to do that thing. They've had some success in that thing that you're seeking to do. You want to do that. The next thing about the mentor is that you want to be able to connect with the mentor. Because it's no sense if the person has the skills, the capabilities, the ability to do what it is that you want, but the vibe ain't right. You get my point? The vibe ain't right. Your spirits clash. So you want to find that, and then you want to find somebody who is reachable. Can you reach the mentor whenever you need to ask a question or whatever? And by the way, don't be a freeple. I learned this one from one of my mentors recently. Don't be a freeple. Who is a freeple? A freeple is somebody who wants everything for free. Free food, free clothes, free movies, free courses, free sheet music, free backing track, free everything. As long as it's free, they're in. Next person you don't want to be, a cheapo. Okay? The cheapo is the person who will buy it for $5 or less, or $2. but once it's beyond a certain point, they will not buy it. And it amazes me. Like, I see people, for example, going off on a tangent. Like, I see buskers in the streets busking, and I see people putting like pennies into the thing. And I follow a few online, and these buskers saying they spent the last 2 hours and only made $5. Like, really? $5? Now, I have made it a habit of mine that whenever I go somewhere and I see a busker, it doesn't matter what they're playing, whether it's a guitar, it's a saxophone, it's a flute, it's a violin, they're a singer, whatever, keyboard, drummer, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. I have made it a habit where if I am going to put some money in, it has to be more than $5, but not less than $5. Why? Because at the end of the day, that $5 is not going to make me worse off as a person. And secondly, it can at least do something for the musician. He can buy a cup of coffee. What can you buy with a quarter? Basically almost nothing. I mean, the 99-cent stores that existed in the past, I don't know how many of them still are in existence. So what can that do? You want to have an accountability partner. Find a coach, find a mentor, find somebody who is going to hold you accountable for what you are seeking to develop. You're trying to do what they can do. And by the way, learn this. A teacher basically cannot really teach you to do anything. I'm a teacher by profession for over a decade. What we do as a teacher, my belief as a teacher, is that I teach my students strategies of how to better teach themselves. You get the point? So I can't teach you to play by ear. I can't teach you to improvise. I can't teach you to play the saxophone. What I do, I teach you strategies. You take the strategies and you go aside and you practice on your horn. You get my point? Every year I get about 100 plus freshmen. Now, when I teach my freshmen the techniques and the strategies, I am not holding their hands like they are 1-year-olds or 2-year-olds trying to write A, B, C, D, E, and D, right? No, I'm giving them strategies for teaching themselves so that when they go to the library, for example, and they're learning the material, they can take the strategy because they don't know what I know. So I'm giving them what I know so they take the strategies to teach themselves better. The same thing with you and a mentor or a teacher. When you go, they teach you strategies, you take the strategies, you go practice by yourself, okay? So you need somebody who is going to guide you and help you to consistently. Now, when you add time plus consistency, then you are going to get exponential results. Okay? Exponential results. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when you're using time, you are not necessarily trying to make a big chunk of investment. You may not have 3 or 5 hours every day to practice, but if you have 15 minutes over time, it adds up because what you're going to do is use the 1% rule. Okay? This is what the 1% rule states. When you're improving by 1% every day, this is what happened for 365 days. So over the period, you are going 1.01 by 365 equals 37.78, okay? And that is going to be 37 times better. B-E-T-T-E-R. Okay? So this is what happened. Your growth is not linear. It's not on a straight line going across. Okay? So what is going to happen? This is what's going to happen. You're practicing for 5 days. You didn't get any results. 10 days, 15 days. But at day 30 or day 66, at that time you realize you go into the practice room, you take up your horn and you start to play the palm key notes and you realize that they're no longer thin. You're playing the palm key notes and they're coming out like easily. Your habits compound. It's not addition, it's multiplication. That's what happens. But if you are not getting better, this is what happens. 0.99 by 65 equals time 0.03. So at the end of 365 days, if you're not improving by 1%, because this is called the 1% rule. If you're not improving by 1% and you are getting worse, then at the end of a year, you're almost at 0% improvement. So you want to improve by 1% every day. And you're going to use time plus consistency. 1% every day. What does 1% look like? Well, if you can't play all your 12 major scales, for example, you can only play up to 3 sharps and 3 flats, then 1% mean that tomorrow you're going to take up your horn. The next time you take up your horn, you're going to learn 4 sharps, E major, 4 flats, A flat major. Okay? You're going to learn those. That's the 1% rule that you're going to apply. So time plus consistency over time is going to reap you exponential results as a beginner saxophone player. So you have to learn to use time, and then you do it on a consistent basis every day. Okay? Not one day of the week, but every day. Because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. That's what I heard Rick Beato says. There's no middle ground about maintaining your saxophone or maintaining your sound. Okay? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. So use time to your advantage, which is by default. Whether you practice or not, time is going by. But consistency is by choice, and this is where your habits come in, where every day you make it a habit. I'm going to work on my horn, I'm going to work on my sound, or I'm going to work on my technique, I'm going to work on this scale, I'm going to work on this scale pattern, I'm going to work on this etude, I'm going to work on this jazz piece, I'm going to learn to play by ear, I'm going to learn to sight read. There are so many things for you to do in music that you cannot exhaust it over the period of your lifetime. But you do it in small bits, 1% at a time. Do remember to give us a like, it helps. As always, Saxo friend, push, play until something happens. Peace.